Nick Diaz versus Kevin Holland is in the works. Jan Blachowicz versus Aleksandar Rakic has been made official, and the second coming of Kris Moutinho is upon us. I thought I'd break down all of these topics on today's MMA News reaction video, starting with Nick Diaz versus Kevin Holland being targeted for 2022, according to Chael Sonnen. Now, the first part of that headline is actually kind of believable. Nick Diaz versus Kevin Holland targeted for 2022. I would actually probably believe that headline if I just saw that headline randomly, because I understand why the UFC would make that matchup. Kevin Holland is not really a top-tier fighter. He doesn't really need to take on top-tier opponents, and he's a big star in the making, and the UFC needs a big star right now in Kevin Holland because they've invested so much, he had so much potential, and he's failed at middleweight, and he needs a new start in the welterweight division, and Nick Diaz wants to fight again in the UFC. He mentioned it. He said if he loses to Robbie Lawler, he's going to want to get right back in there against another opponent. He even mentioned in a comment section of an Instagram post once, I'll take this guy on in terms of like a fight fell out and Nick Diaz wanted to step in and take on the guy. So he's very interested in getting back in the cage and doing better than he did against Robbie Lawler. And I could see why the UFC would take advantage of Nick Diaz's willingness and give him Kevin Holland, because it's a very winnable matchup for Kevin Holland, an extremely winnable matchup for Kevin Holland. He's probably going to beat Nick Diaz. It's a huge fight between two big names in the UFC, and it would go very nicely to open up a pay-per-view main card and make a bunch of pay-per-view money for the UFC. I understand why they would make the matchup, but the second part of this headline is according to Chael Sonnen. And that's very important to the headline. And I'm glad that it was included in this headline. Chael Sonnen's full of shit. Okay? That's as polite as I can put it, in my opinion. I now don't believe this at all. Because Chael Sonnen said on Beyond the Fights yesterday that UFC is targeting a matchup between Nick Diaz and Kevin Holland for 2022. Now, Chael Sonnen said a lot of things on his podcast. I've watched his YouTube channel for quite some time, and he seems to, let's just say if he doesn't have a video, he'll have a video. You know what I'm saying? He'll make sure he has a video. And if he doesn't have a video, and there isn't really anything interesting to discuss, he'll kind of make up something interesting to discuss. Remember when Dominic Cruz gave him that phone call that never really happened, but still it made sure that there was a video for his YouTube channel anyway? Chael Sonnen's full of shit. Essentially, if everything was according to Chael Sonnen, Islam Makhachev... I'm saying it wrong now. If everything was according to Chael Sonnen, Islam Makhachev would be called Islam Makhachev, okay? Jeremy Stevens would be called Jeremy Stevens, and Yair Rodriguez would be called Yair Rodriguez. So, I'm going to take this with a pinch of salt, and I'm still going to talk about the matchup. I do believe Kevin Holland would win this one. But, basically, they asked Kevin Holland about the news that Chael Sonnen had broke, and he replied with a shocked face. Maybe, stating that he had no idea about this, and it's shocking information to him that Chael Sonnen has heard about this. Maybe it's actually true. Chael Sonnen does work behind the scenes at the UFC. He works for ESPN. This was on an ESPN show as well, I believe, or maybe it was on his YouTube channel. I'm not too sure. But he does work for them, and he does rub shoulders with people, and he does get the lingo and what's going on in the business right now. Give me a message. Let me know what's going on. I'll make a video about it and stuff. Like, have you got any scoops? I'm sure he's walking around the offices at ESPN, asking if anyone's got any juicy gossip for him. And maybe this is actually real, because I could see this being a possibility. It's the fact that Chael Sonnen's name has been attached to it that makes it way less real. And, I think it could happen. I genuinely do believe it could happen. I don't really see what else they're going to do with Kevin Holland, other than give him maybe Li Jingliang or someone else who's coming off a loss right now at welterweight. Maybe Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland could be a matchup that was made. But Nick Diaz is not going to shoot a takedown. He's going to stand and trade with Kevin Holland. He's a big name. He's a winnable matchup. It's great for a pay-per-view card, and Kevin Holland will be a massive star if he goes out there and destroys Nick Diaz and get a bunch of attention. Can you imagine Kevin Holland talking about how he had a dream about this before when fighting Nick Diaz? I can only imagine the kind of lines that Kevin Holland's got set up. Not like John Jones's lines that he's got set up, But Kevin Holland, I can only imagine the lines that he has set up for when he's in the cage with Nick Diaz. And maybe it's not even set up. Maybe he just comes out with them on the moment, which is even better if he does. I'm sure he does in most cases anyway. But I just can't wait to see if this matchup does happen. Kevin Holland talking to Nick Diaz in the cage. And who knows, maybe Nick Diaz talking back. That would be a great clip, a great highlight. It would bring a ton of attention to the card. And I would really love to see it. And I can't wait for this matchup if it does happen. But, of course, the comment sections of this headline are very telling as to how the general MMA public feel about Chael Sonnen's news. Because the top comment is, no way I trust Chael. The other comment is doubt face or doubt emoji and stuff like that. No one believes this is true because Chael Sonnen is turning into the undefeated goat that cried wolf, essentially, you know? Like, this probably ain't gonna happen. So, I'm hoping it does. I'm really hoping it does. But Chael said it. So, you know, we'll see. I don't understand why they would do this to Nick Diaz, but I would much rather like to see him face a guy who he could actually have a chance at beating. I reckon Nick Diaz would actually have a decent chance of beating Nico Price, and I wouldn't mind that matchup at all. I wish Carlos Condit was still in the UFC, because we could make Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit too, and that would be a great matchup as well. That would be a winnable fight for Nick Diaz. I don't like the idea of this. I think Kevin Holland's going to really badly KO him if it does happen. Really badly KO him on the feet. And it would be sad to watch. So hopefully they don't, but hopefully they do, because I need content. Moving on to another fight that's been announced recently. Jan Blachowicz versus Aleksandar Rakic. I did a video on this a couple of days ago, or maybe a week ago, because it was in the works, it was being discussed. But apparently now both sides have agreed it's going to take place. It's not official, it's not finalized, but they've both given a verbal agreement. They want to fight on March the 26th. And it's a big matchup in the light heavyweight division right now. Former champion Jan Blachowicz, legendary Polish Bor, wants to correct the mistake that he made against Glover Teixeira by ruining the entire light heavyweight division by having Glover Teixeira as champ. And yeah, he's getting right back in there in March. I wish he was champion, because this announcement right now would be Jan Blachowicz versus Jiří Procházka in March on a pay-per-view card. But it's not. Because that old fuck Glover is champ. And everyone loves to see it, until he only fights once a fucking year because he's filled up on bingo and knitting and sitting by the campfire and telling stories to his fucking grandkids as he's the champion of the fucking light heavyweight division. It's all good though. This would be Jan Blachowicz versus Jiří Procházka being signed for March, but it's not. So it's ruined everything, and now who the fuck does Jiří fight? I guess Glover, but what does Anthony Smith do now? Ankleev versus Santos has been made. Now Blachowicz versus Aleksandar Rakic has been made. Glover's going to fight Jiří. Jiří's not going to fight Anthony Smith. So Anthony Smith has fought 3 contenders in a row, worked his way back up for fucking nothing. Because Glover Teixeira, I need to calm down. But this is a good matchup. I like this matchup. Let's talk about who I believe wins. I might go with Jan Blachowicz here. This is going to be a stand-up fight. I don't think Aleksandar Rakic has got the grappling ability offensively to get Jan Blachowicz to the ground, but I didn't think he would have that against Anthony Smith, so maybe he just takes Jan Blachowicz down, and Jan Blachowicz leaves his legendary Polish ground game in his hotel room, and then does nothing on bottom, which is weird for a guy who's been training decades in the game, and is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But, it could be the case that Aleksandar Rakic gets a takedown, sits in half guard, and total strikes his way to a unanimous decision victory. But I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't think Rakic has got nearly the same offensive grappling game than Glover Teixeira has. And I reckon Jan Blachowicz is probably going to win himself a very close striking match over 5 rounds, because Aleksandar Rakic is very hesitant. He doesn't push a high pace. I don't think he'd push a high pace against Jan Blachowicz. He's got good leg kicks, but one thing we saw with Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya was his ability to deal with leg kicks. I know that Aleksandar Rakic's are different levels of leg kick, like the Israel Adesanya's scrawny-ass middleweight legs, but Aleksandar Rakic has devastating leg kicks, but they're slower than Adesanya's in ways. He doesn't set them up with the same kind of technique and skill that Israel Adesanya does. They're way more powerful and they're way more efficient and effective than Israel Adesanya's kicks, but I feel like Jan Blachowicz has shown us throughout his career an ability to deal with leg kicks and an ability to destroy people on the feet that are good strikers. Dominic Reyes clearly outstruck John Jones 3 out of 5 rounds and won that matchup against John Jones so fucking clearly. Dominated him in the stand-up for the first 3 rounds. John Jones. Jan Blachowicz obliterated Dominic Reyes like he was nothing. I don't think this is going to be a grappling matchup. I can see this being a stand-up fight. And if it's a stand-up fight, I trust Jan Blachowicz's chin more. I trust his cardio more. I trust his power more. The only problem I have is maybe Rakic lands a couple of those devastating leg kicks and Jan can't walk anymore. And he's had his injuries to his knees in his career. And maybe he's had a little bit too much. And he's a little bit too old. And a new guard takes over. But I will be on the side of Jan Blachowicz so far. This could change. I might end up picking Aleksandar Rakic because he's the new blood in the division and he is improving. But Jan Blachowicz in a stand-up matchup against Aleksandar Rakic, I can trust him to win that one in my opinion. So I think he will win this one. But we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be a very boring, slow, nothing happens barely in a 5-round decision fight. Moving on up the news list of news. I'm acting like I'm doing a prediction video right now. The second coming of Kris Moutinho is upon us. He has returned. The Holy One himself. The GOAT has returned. He has graced us with his presence once more. Thank God, now may he turn water into wine. Kris Moutinho is here with his shit knockoff edition of Conor McGregor's chest tattoo on his chest. I mean, it's just a weird matchup. He's fighting Guido Cannetti, 8-6, on a losing streak right now. A long losing streak. Get rid of Kevin Lee, but not Guido Cannetti. Need to make the most out of him. What if Guido Cannetti wins? Do you just fucking cut him anyway? I don't understand. The matchups that the UFC makes doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. This is on the Santos versus Ankleev card. 80% of people are picking Guido Cannetti. He's actually somewhat good, I will give him that. He went to a split decision against Manny Martinez, made it reasonably close. Before that, he lost to Dana Batgarel. Before that, he lost to Marlon Vera. He beat Diego Rivas, but he lost to Kang Ho Kang. Lost to Henry Briones. So far in his career, he is 2-6? 2-5? I guess. Lost all of his bouts on The Ultimate Fighter, both of them. Lost both of them that he had. One to Alejandro Perez by first round KO, and another one to Marco Beltran. He just loses for a living, essentially, and he's 41 years of age. But the UFC needs to keep a hold of him. But not Kevin Lee, and not Tyron Woodley, and not Yoel Romero, but Sam Alvey and Guido Cannetti must be a part of the fabric of the UFC. Now, I actually don't mind the idea of Guido Cannetti winning this one. I could see him maybe getting some takedowns on Kris Moutinho, but I'll trust Kris Moutinho to win this one. Younger, up and coming, I think he'll get a bunch of confidence, taking the shots that he... I don't even know what I'm saying here. He's literally a fucking heavy bag, so... well, he's not... He's a light bag, let's say. He could win, though. I don't know what to say about this. They're both shit. They are both shit. The toughness of Kris Moutinho is something to marvel at, and Guido Cannetti's not got the best of chins. And Guido, he doesn't really show great ability in the ground game. It's not like he dominates fighters on the ground at all. I don't think he's ever done that in his entire career, it feels like. But Kris Moutinho has got a good ground game. He has a lot of his wins by submission. Arm triangle choke. He's got another submission on his career as well. He's got good submission defense. At one point, he got a TKO with elbows, but the guy was already in a triangle and stuff like that. So he's got a decent ground game. He's got good awareness on the ground. He takes shots well on the feet. He puts good pressure on his opponents. He's 29 years of age. I feel like he's probably going to get the win over Guido Cannetti. If he doesn't, I'll be very shocked. But he's bigger. He's taller. He's rangier. I think he's got a better chin. He's younger. Good ground game. Decent stand-up. I think he'll win, but we'll see how it fucking goes. Wouldn't be surprised if Guido Cannetti wins that one, though. But we'll see. I'll probably pick Kris Moutinho as an underdog, I guess. Next story that came out. Felicia Spencer retires, making us ask the question that we have always been asking. What is the fucking next move with the featherweight division? No Felicia Spencer. Leah Letson is there, but she lost, and she's not even a women's featherweight. She'll probably move down to bantamweight. Daniela Wolf now doesn't have an opponent. Aspen Ladd is not going to return to featherweight, I don't believe. She'll probably try and come back down to bantamweight. Why does it exist? Norma Jamont is the only fighter there right now. Officially. The only fighter at women's featherweight active in the division is Norma Jamont. One fighter. Why is it there? I'll tell you why the women's featherweight division is there. The world has gone to shit. Western society has fallen. Amanda Nunes is a female, I guess. At first glance. She's a female. And they want to call her the GOAT of the sport. Period. And they need to do that by giving her Juliana Pena as an opponent. And then having a division for her to obtain free legacy in. It's just what they want to do. They want to have a female as the GOAT of the sport, period. And this is how they're going to do it. Going to fabricate legacy. To be fair, they've been doing it to loads of champions right now. Adesanya with the Vettori defense, that made no sense. Usman with a rematch against Masvidal, that made no sense. Didn't even make any sense in the first place anyway. But it was on short notice, so whatever. The Covington rematch made no fucking sense. Yeah, I mean, they're doing it across the board. Valentina Shevchenko is getting free legacy handed to her by a division that barely fucking existed when she became champ. Like, it's just a bit of a sad time, but oh well. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Please, Chael Sonnen, don't be lying. Don't do this to us. I really do hope that Nick Diaz versus Kevin Holland could get made. It would be a huge fight. I doubt it does, though. Toodle pip.